Deployment and reintegration is a time of change and transition for military families. It adds a new level of stress to both parents and children.
The spouse that's left behind has to assume a number of roles that otherwise the other spouse would be handling. Or in an unmarried situation, if the single parent is heading away, now that child heads into a completely different dynamic.
Deployment is especially hard for kids when they're worried about mom or dad.
Much of what we do when we deploy, we're not able to discuss with family members. And so, children are not aloof to that. They'll start to fill in the blanks with their own thoughts and, perceptions that they get from the media, friends at school. And oftentimes those are not necessarily the right perceptions, such as harm coming to the family member. And I think that puts undue stress on the child.
Unfortunately, studies show adolescents who haven't used substances are more likely to start using alcohol and/or drugs during times of transitions, like deployment and reintegration, to cope with stress. Parents who are concerned how these stressors will affect their children can be proactive. Colonel Little suggests getting children into counseling early, before a service member leaves or returns home from deployment. Another step parents can take to reduce the chances their child becomes involved with drinking or drugs is to open the lines of communication. Encourage open dialogue, not just talking with the child, but listening as well. Kids who learn about the dangers of drugs and alcohol at home are up to 50% less likely to use than kids who don't. Deployed parents can have meaningful communication with their children via phone conversations and video chatting, but don't forget to also write letters.
And the reason I say that and the reason I emphasize that point is because the children can then go back to that and reread that. And if you're in your letters talking about the type of support, how much you appreciate them, how much you admire their activities, what they're doing, how proud you are of them, how much you love them. A child, may face a difficult situation later on that night, may wake up with a nightmare in the middle of the night, and they can pull out that letter and re-reference that letter. And that hopefully can, provide some reassurance for that child.
Here are 4 additional steps to help your child reject offers to try drugs or alcohol. Act out drug and alcohol scenarios with your kids. It's important to practice these scenarios before your children find themselves in this situation. Scenarios can be found in the military toolkit in the tools section of DrugFreeAZKids.org. Monitoring isn't hovering or being overprotective. It's keeping track of who your child is with, what they're doing, where they are, and when they'll be home. It means checking up on them and knowing your children's friends and their parents. You want to repeatedly discuss the dangers of drugs and alcohol. Don't worry about being a broken record. Even if they've heard it 1,000,000 times before, it never hurts to talk to teens about the consequences of drinking and drug use. And remember, it takes a village to raise a child. As members of the military, you and your family have a great support system. When a parent is deployed, it's more important than ever to ask a caring adult for help when you need it. Resources here in Arizona include the National Guard's Be Resilient program, designed to meet the specific needs of service members and their families by connecting them to appropriate resources and training. Another resource is the Arizona Coalition for Military Families. The coalition links military, government, and community partners to support service members, veterans, and their families. In addition, DrugFreeAZ.org is always here for you as a resource. Please consider joining our Parents Club, where you can stay a step ahead to help reduce the chances your child will use drugs or alcohol.